Commanding your day with intention begins with an inner decision to refuse passivity. Each morning, you stand at the threshold of possibility, and the first words you speak become the architects of everything that follows. When you wake up with purpose, you acknowledge that your day is not something that simply happens to you. It is something you shape, direct, and influence through your mindset, declarations, and alignment with God's promises. Intention shifts you from being a reactor to being a creator of your daily experience. Before your feet touch the floor, intention calls you to establish spiritual authority. This means choosing to silence every lingering thought from yesterday that seeks to seep into today. You dismiss fear, discouragement, and confusion before they have a chance to gain momentum. You deliberately clear the atmosphere of anything inconsistent with the plans God has for you. This kind of intentional command creates a foundation of clarity and focus, enabling you to move forward with power and precision. When you command your day, you engage your mind in agreement with heaven's agenda. You acknowledge that your thoughts are seeds, and what you meditate on becomes what you manifest. Intention leads you to saturate your mind with truth, with purpose, and with expectation. Instead of allowing distractions or negative patterns to set your emotional tone, you align your perspective with faith, strength, and possibility. This internal agreement influences every decision, response, and opportunity you encounter. Commanding your day is also about stewardship. You recognize that each moment carries value, and you refuse to waste the gift God has placed in your hands. Intention compels you to prioritize what supports your assignment and release what drains your energy. You become aware of your time, your habits, and your focus. Instead of letting circumstances dictate your pace, you establish rhythms that honor your purpose and protect your peace. A day commanded with intention is a day anchored in prayer and declaration. You speak life into your morning, declaring God's protection, guidance, and provision. You don't wait for challenges to arise before responding. Instead, you proactively saturate your atmosphere with the Word of God. Intention means you decide ahead of time what kind of day you will have, and you align your faith-filled words with that decision. This spiritual posture strengthens your confidence and equips you for whatever unfolds. As you command your day, you also affirm your identity. You remind yourself who you are, whose you are, and what authority you carry. You refuse to shrink or approach your day with hesitation. You rise as someone chosen, empowered, and equipped. Intention empowers you to step into every environment, your workplace, your home, your interactions, knowing that you carry influence and purpose. This confidence transforms not only how you see yourself, but how the world responds to you. Intention calls for emotional discipline. Instead of allowing your feelings to run unchecked, you guide them with wisdom and truth. You choose peace over agitation, gratitude over frustration, and expectancy over doubt. Commanding your day means you set the emotional climate before anything external has a chance to dictate it. Through this discipline, you develop resilience, making it difficult for circumstances to pull you off balance. Your relationships are also shaped when you command your day with intention. You engage with others from a place of strength rather than reaction. You become more mindful, more purposeful, and more aware of the impact your words carry. Instead of entering into conversations with scattered energy or unresolved internal conflict, you show up grounded, focused, and spiritually centered. This kind of intentional presence deepens connections and fosters healthier interactions. Commanding your day influences your productivity. You no longer allow procrastination, confusion, or disorganization to disrupt your flow. Intention helps you clarify what needs to be accomplished and gives you the discipline to follow through. You become proactive instead of reactive, purposeful instead of aimless. As a result, your day becomes more fruitful, structured, and aligned with your long-term vision. Finally, intention shifts your atmosphere. When you command your day, you elevate the spiritual temperature around you. You step into your morning with authority, establishing peace where there could be chaos and clarity where there could be confusion. You become a vessel through which God's presence flows into every task, conversation, and environment, This shift not only transforms your inner world, but influences everything and everyone connected to you. Activating divine protection begins with recognizing that you are never left vulnerable, uncovered, or exposed. The words of Psalm 91 are not poetic suggestions. They are a spiritual covenant that surrounds you like a fortress. When you declare this psalm, you step into a realm where God Himself becomes your shield, your covering, and your refuge. You remind your soul that protection is not something you hope for. It is something you inherit, something already established, something you choose to walk in daily. As you begin your day, activating divine protection means consciously placing yourself under the shadow of the Almighty. This is not a passive position, but a deliberate spiritual posture. It means you draw near, dwell close, and remain aligned with His presence. When you stay under His shadow, fear cannot track you, danger cannot overtake you, and the enemy cannot locate you. You are hidden, not by accident, but by divine intention. Speaking Psalm 91 releases a hedge of supernatural covering around your life. You declare that no evil will befall you, and no plague will come near your dwelling. These are not empty words. They are spiritual laws activated through faith. When you speak them, you set boundaries the enemy cannot cross. You establish divine parameters around your home, your travels, your work, your body, and everything concerning you. This activation is a daily reinforcement that you are safeguarded by heavenly forces. Divine protection also means acknowledging the ministry of angels assigned to your life. Psalm 91 reminds you that angels are commanded to guard you in all your ways. This means your steps are monitored, your path is protected, and your journey is reinforced by unseen warriors. When you activate this promise, you become aware that every movement you make is under heavenly surveillance. You are escorted, guided, and shielded by divine messengers who are committed to your safety. Activating divine protection shifts your mindset from fear to confidence. Instead of imagining worst-case scenarios, your heart becomes anchored in the assurance that God is your refuge. Uncertainty loses its grip because you know you are wrapped in layers of supernatural defense. Anxiety begins to dissolve because you understand that you do not walk alone. This mindset becomes a powerful shield, guarding your emotions from being overwhelmed by the pressures and unpredictability of the world. Activating divine protection also impacts the atmosphere around you. When you declare Psalm 91, you shift the spiritual climate of your home, your workplace, and your environment. Darkness retreats because the light of God's presence is invoked. Negative energy cannot survive where His glory is invited. Every declaration becomes a spiritual barrier that dismantles the plans of the enemy before they can form. The atmosphere becomes saturated with peace, strength, and divine presence. When you activate Psalm 91, you silence the voice of fear. You strip fear of its authority by reminding yourself that God delivers you from every snare and every danger. You replace fear-driven thoughts with faith-filled declarations. This mental shift strengthens your spiritual posture and creates inner resilience. You walk through your day with boldness, knowing that nothing can confront you without confronting the God who protects you. Activating divine protection empowers you to trust in ways you may have struggled with before. It calls you to rest in God's faithfulness, knowing that His promises are not conditional on circumstances. You learn to release control, surrender worry, and lean fully into His word. This trust creates inner stability, allowing you to navigate challenges with calmness and clarity. You become unmoved by threats because your confidence is anchored in divine assurance. Psalm 91 also addresses the unseen battles that take place in the spiritual realm. When you activate this psalm, you fortify yourself against attacks you may not even be aware of. You cover your mind, your heart, your relationships, your assignments, and your destiny. You reinforce your spiritual borders, making it difficult for any harmful influence to penetrate your life. Your spirit becomes fortified, strengthened by the truth that God is your refuge and fortress. Activating divine protection is a daily discipline that aligns you with heaven's defense system. It is a reminder that you are covered from every angle above, beneath, beside, within, and around. You walk with the assurance that no matter what the day holds, you are carried by divine strength. Every step you take is surrounded by God's protective presence, and nothing can touch you without passing through His hands first. Walking in provision and peace begins with the deep, unwavering recognition that you are guided by a shepherd who is attentive, intentional, and perfectly faithful. Psalm 23 declares that you lack nothing, not because life is without challenges, but because God Himself is your source. When you embrace this truth, you step out of striving and step into a place of divine assurance. Your needs are not left to chance, your steps are not left to guesswork, and your future is not left without direction. This awareness becomes the foundation upon which you walk with calm confidence. As you rise each day, walking in provision means acknowledging that every resource you need is already prepared. Whether it is strength, clarity, finances, relationships, or opportunities, you are not forced to scramble or operate from a place of desperation. The shepherd goes before you, making arrangements long before you arrive. Provision is not a momentary gift. It is a continual flow that follows you as long as you continue to follow Him. This truth quiets the fear of lack and dismantles the worry that often tries to dominate your thoughts. Peace becomes your inheritance when you allow the shepherd to lead you into green pastures. These pastures represent more than physical rest. They symbolize internal renewal. In a world full of chaos, God provides still places where your mind can be refreshed and your spirit can be stabilized. When you follow His leading, you find yourself moving away from environments that drain you and into spaces that restore you. Peace becomes the atmosphere in which you breathe, think, and make decisions. As you walk in provision and peace, you begin to understand that restoration is part of your journey. The shepherd restores your soul, your emotions, your inner strength, your sense of purpose. You do not have to carry yesterday's exhaustion into today. His restoration renews your capacity to believe, to love, and to move forward without being weighed down by past disappointments. This restoration is not a one-time experience, but a daily renewal that strengthens your inner resilience. Walking in provision also means trusting the shepherd's guidance. He leads you in paths of righteousness, not paths of confusion or instability. His leading prevents unnecessary detours and protects you from choices that could derail your destiny. Even when the path feels unfamiliar or uncomfortable, you can walk with assurance knowing that His guidance is rooted in wisdom. This trust dissolves anxiety about the unknown and anchors you in the confidence that you are being led by a divine hand. Peace becomes especially evident when you find yourself walking through valleys, those seasons of uncertainty, difficulty, or challenge. The psalm reminds you that you may walk through the valley, but you do not walk alone. This awareness shifts your posture. Instead of shrinking back in fear, you walk forward with courage. The presence of the shepherd becomes your protection, calming your fears and reminding you that valleys are temporary passageways, not permanent destinations. Provision also manifests in the way God prepares tables for you, even in the presence of adversity. This image reveals that your blessings, opportunities, and breakthroughs are not dependent on perfect conditions. Even when opposition surrounds you or circumstances seem unfavorable, God sets divine arrangements in place. He provides favor where there was resistance and abundance where there was lack. This level of provision defies natural logic and confirms that your supply comes from a supernatural source. As you walk in peace, you become aware that God anoints your head with oil. This anointing represents empowerment, clarity, and divine enablement. It marks you as chosen, equipped, and protected. The oil keeps your mind from being overwhelmed, keeps your emotions from being scattered, and keeps your purpose from being disrupted. It is a reminder that you are spiritually fortified for every assignment before you. Walking in provision and peace means recognizing that your cup is not meant to remain half full. It runs over. This overflow is not accidental but intentional. It is the manifestation of God's generosity, abundance, and goodness toward you. When you live in overflow, you no longer operate from depletion. You move from a place of spiritual, emotional, and even material abundance. This overflow influences how you give, serve, decide, and show up in the world. Finally, walking in provision and peace anchors you in the assurance that goodness and mercy are following you every single day of your life. You are not followed by misfortune, failure, or fear. Your companions are goodness and mercy. They track you, surround you, and sustain you. This awareness transforms how you wake up, how you navigate challenges, and how you envision your future. You begin to walk through life with calm assurance, knowing that you are guided, covered, supplied, and surrounded by the faithful presence of God. Engaging in strategic warfare begins with understanding that not every battle you face is physical. Many of the challenges that confront you are rooted in spiritual opposition, forces designed to hinder your progress, disrupt your peace, and derail your purpose. Psalm 35 equips you to recognize these unseen battles and respond not with fear or frustration, but with spiritual authority. When you engage in warfare through this psalm, you are not reacting emotionally. You are taking a deliberate, disciplined, and divinely empowered stand. Strategic warfare requires alignment with God as your defender. You call upon Him to contend with those who contend with you, to fight against what fights against you, and to tear down every scheme formed against your destiny. This is not about taking matters into your own hands, but about positioning yourself under God's justice. You acknowledge that He sees what you cannot see and fights in ways you cannot fight. By invoking Psalm 35, you invite heaven's intervention into earth's conflicts. When you engage in warfare with this psalm, you are declaring that no weapon formed against your life will succeed. You are establishing boundaries that prevent spiritual attacks from gaining access to your mind, your assignments, your relationships, or your future. Warfare is not passive, it is a proactive stance where you dismantle strongholds before they gain strength. You disrupt the enemy's strategies before they have a chance to unfold. This is the essence of strategic warfare, anticipating, confronting, and overturning spiritual opposition. Strategic warfare also involves addressing false accusations and adversarial voices that seek to undermine your identity or purpose. Psalm 35 speaks to the God who silences those who rise up unjustly against you. When you engage this psalm, you are declaring that every tongue lifted to harm you will be condemned. You are invoking divine justice over unfair treatment, hidden plots, and deceptive influences. You refuse to allow lies to shape your path or define your worth. Engaging in this kind of warfare strengthens your spiritual resilience. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by adversity, you rise with confidence, knowing that you are not fighting alone. The psalm reminds you that God takes pleasure in the prosperity of His servant. That means He is invested in your victory. This awareness shifts your posture from victim to victor. You begin to confront challenges with courage, stability, and boldness, fully aware that heaven backs your declarations. Strategic warfare also calls for persistence. You do not pray once and retreat. You stand, you speak, and you press in until breakthrough manifests. Psalm 35 reflects a tenacity that refuses to surrender ground. When you engage with this same persistence, you develop a spiritual endurance that outlasts opposition. You cultivate a fortified spirit that refuses to crumble under pressure. This persistence becomes a weapon in itself, wearing down the resistance that tries to stand against you. As you engage in warfare, you allow God to deal with adversaries in His timing and His way. Strategic warfare is never about revenge. It is about divine justice. You release the situation into God's hands, trusting that He will expose what is hidden, dismantle what is harmful, and restore what has been threatened. This surrender frees your heart from bitterness and keeps your spirit aligned with righteousness. In warfare, your purity of heart becomes part of your strength. Engaging in strategic warfare also protects your destiny. You are not only fighting for your present, but for everything connected to your future, your calling, your growth, your impact, and the generations after you. Psalm 35 ensures that the battles meant to slow you down do not take root. It uproots the seeds of sabotage and preserves the path God designed for you. Warfare becomes an act of stewardship over your purpose and the legacy you are building. Through this psalm, you also reaffirm your dependence on God's power rather than your own. Strategic warfare reminds you that your strength alone is not enough, but with God, no opposition is too great. You fight from a place of spiritual advantage, knowing that the enemy is already defeated. This conviction empowers you to speak boldly, pray confidently, and move forward without hesitation. The authority you carry comes from the God who goes before you and surrounds you. Engaging in strategic warfare with Psalm 35 shifts your entire spiritual atmosphere. It transforms fear into faith, tension into triumph, and uncertainty into clarity. You rise with the awareness that you are spiritually armed, mentally fortified, and divinely backed. Every declaration becomes a strike against the plans formed against you. Every prayer becomes a barrier around your life, and every word spoken in faith becomes a weapon that secures the victory already promised to you. Shaping your atmosphere with your words begins with understanding the creative power that has been placed in your mouth. Every word you speak releases something into the atmosphere: life or death, peace or chaos, clarity or confusion. Your environment is not only influenced by what happens around you, but by what flows out of you. When you wake up and begin to speak intentionally, you set the tone for your day. Your words become the architects that structure your mindset, your emotions, and your expectations. As you open your mouth each morning, you are not merely talking, you are commanding. The atmosphere responds to your voice. When you declare strength, weakness begins to dissolve. When you speak peace, turmoil loses its grip. When you decree victory, defeat loses its authority. Your words are not passive, they carry spiritual weight. They build, they bind, they release, and they shift. When you understand this, you become deliberate with every declaration, ensuring that what you speak aligns with what you expect God to manifest. Shaping your atmosphere means refusing to allow negativity to dominate your space. You reject the temptation to verbalize fear, doubt, or frustration. You choose to speak faith even when circumstances challenge you. This discipline does not deny reality, it governs it. Your words create a spiritual shield that keeps external pressures from infiltrating your inner peace. You begin to experience the power of speaking what you want to see, rather than repeating what you currently feel. When you shape your atmosphere with your words, you establish spiritual boundaries. You speak protection over your home, your mind, your relationships, and your assignments. You draw lines that the enemy cannot cross. This is not about superstition, it is about spiritual authority. Words become the walls that guard your peace, the gates that invite God's presence, and the barriers that block anything that threatens your purpose. Your declarations become a constant reinforcement of divine covering. The atmosphere you create with your words influences your mental clarity. When you speak words of wisdom, direction begins to emerge. When you confess God's promises, anxiety loses its voice. When you declare truth, lies are exposed and rendered powerless. Your mind becomes aligned with heaven's perspective, and confusion begins to lift. This mental shift enhances your decision-making, increases your confidence, and gives you the ability to navigate challenges with discernment. Your words also influence the emotional atmosphere you carry. Instead of being tossed by emotions, you speak stability into your soul. You declare calmness when you feel overwhelmed, joy when discouragement tries to settle in, and hope when disappointment whispers. As you speak, your emotions begin to adjust themselves to the declarations coming out of your mouth. You discover that you do not have to wait for your feelings to align before you speak. You speak until your feelings align. Shaping your atmosphere with your words extends into your relationships. The way you speak affects the way you connect with others. When your speech carries grace, peace enters conversations. When your words carry encouragement, hearts are lifted. When your declarations carry authority, negative influences lose their place around you. People are drawn to the stability and strength you release. Your environment becomes a place of support, growth, and spiritual alignment. Your words also influence your productivity. When you declare focus, distractions weaken. When you speak discipline, procrastination loses its hold. When you decree excellence, mediocrity cannot settle in. Your atmosphere becomes charged with purpose, motivating you to fulfill what you have been assigned to do. Every declaration shapes the momentum of your day, pushing you into alignment with your goals and responsibilities. As you continue to shape your atmosphere, you begin to recognize the shift in your spiritual sensitivity. Your words open the door for God's presence to move freely. You speak worship, and His glory fills your space. You speak thanksgiving, and the atmosphere shifts from heaviness to lightness. You speak alignment, and divine order begins to unfold. Your declarations create an environment where spiritual clarity, discernment, and insight can flourish. Shaping your atmosphere with your words ultimately transforms the way you experience life. You wake up empowered rather than overwhelmed, focused rather than fragmented, uplifted rather than unsettled. Each word you speak becomes a building block for the day ahead. You begin to realize that you are not just living in an atmosphere, you are forming it, molding it, and commanding it with the authority God placed within you. Taking bold, faith-filled action begins with the understanding that faith is not passive. It is movement. It is stepping forward even when you cannot see the full path, trusting that each step draws you closer to what God has already prepared. Bold action is not reckless. It is rooted in conviction. It is birthed from a deep assurance that God is with you, guiding you, and strengthening you. When you act in faith, you break free from hesitation and align your life with divine momentum. Bold, faith-filled action requires silencing the voice of doubt. Doubt will always present reasons to wait, delays to consider, and fears to entertain. It will tell you that conditions are not perfect and that you should remain where you are. But faith calls you forward. Faith invites you to move beyond the familiar, to step outside your comfort zone, and to trust in a greater outcome than your natural eyes can perceive. You begin to understand that your breakthrough is often on the other side of a single courageous decision. Taking action in faith means partnering with God's promises through obedience. When you sense His prompting, you respond quickly, without resistance. You get up, you move, you speak, you build, you plant, you initiate. This kind of action is not based on your own strength, but on the assurance that God goes before you. Obedience positions you for opportunities that hesitation would have caused you to miss. Faith-filled action becomes the key that unlocks what has been waiting for you all along. Bold action requires confronting the fear of failure. Faith teaches you that failure is not fatal. It is feedback. Every step you take, even if imperfect, moves you forward. Faith shifts your perspective so that you no longer evaluate outcomes based on fear, but based on learning, growth, and perseverance. When you act boldly, you break the cycle of overthinking, and you allow God to perfect your efforts as you move. You refuse to be paralyzed by what-ifs and instead embrace forward motion. Taking bold, faith-filled action means embracing divine timing. You recognize when the Spirit is stirring you, when the atmosphere is shifting, and when the moment demands movement. You understand that delay can sometimes be a form of disobedience. Faith helps you discern when to wait and when to move. When it is time to act, you seize the moment. You stop waiting for confirmation from circumstances and begin listening to the confirmation in your spirit. Bold action transforms your identity. When you step out in faith, you begin to see yourself differently. You recognize your capacity, your calling, and your resilience. You realize that you are capable of far more than you previously allowed yourself to believe. Each act of faith builds spiritual muscle, strengthens your confidence, and deepens your trust in God. You begin to live from a place of boldness rather than fear, from conviction rather than hesitation. Taking action in faith impacts the atmosphere around you. People can sense your courage, your conviction, and your determination. Your decisions inspire others to pursue their own assignments with boldness. You become a catalyst for change simply by moving when others remain still. Faith-filled action has a ripple effect, influencing environments, relationships, and opportunities you may not even be aware of. Your obedience becomes a testimony that encourages others to trust God at a deeper level. Bold, faith-filled action also positions you for divine partnerships. As you move, God connects you with the right people, opens the right doors, and aligns you with resources that were inaccessible before you stepped out. Movement attracts provision. Opportunities tend to appear for those who are already in motion rather than those who are waiting for perfect clarity. Faith allows you to walk into rooms you once felt unprepared for and excel because God equips you as you go. Taking bold action requires consistency. Faith is not a single moment. It is a lifestyle. It is choosing daily to act on what you believe, not on what you feel. Some days the steps will be big, other days they will be small, but every step counts. Consistency compounds your progress. It transforms long-term vision into present reality. It turns distant dreams into tangible outcomes. Each action, no matter how small, sends a signal to heaven that you are ready for more. Bold, faith-filled action reshapes your destiny. It moves you from where you are into the place God has prepared for you. Without action, faith remains dormant, potential remains unrealized, and promises remain unclaimed. But when you act in faith, you activate destiny. You shift the trajectory of your life. You begin to experience breakthroughs, open doors, and divine acceleration. Acting in faith becomes the engine that propels you into the fullness of your purpose, one courageous step at a time.